Hi everyone, it's our Tell All Tuesday, and I'm so excited to have Sasha Ottey here with me. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. I'm going to read her bio. She is the founder and executive director of PCOS Challenge, Inc., the leading nonprofit support organizations for women with Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. Sasha founded PCOS Challenge, Inc. after her own diagnosis and dissatisfaction with the availability of support and resources for this condition. Since its founding in 2009, the organization has grown to over 38,000 members worldwide, which is amazing. PCOS Challenge provides online resources and educates 1,000 patients and healthcare providers each year through the PCOS Awareness Symposium. Sasha's professional background is in clinical and research microbiology with a bachelor's degree in clinical laboratory science and master's in health administration. Thank you, Sasha, for being here. I'm so excited to have you and have your wisdom for a little bit today. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Thank you so much for inviting me to your Tell All Tuesdays, Kristen.
So I'll just give everybody an update about how I found you. It was amazing because I was working with an organization that we came together to promote an event, and the woman and I were talking, and she's like, I'm so excited for this event in September, and well, it was last year, but and you should really meet Sasha, and you're both kind of doing the same thing in a different way, and she was just telling me and sharing how it was life-changing for her to go and to be with you and be in the group of, the 1,000 people that know this so well, and how comforting it was. So I just want to say thank you so much for what you do about this condition, this medical condition.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kristen. It's PCOS Challenge. We strive to educate patients and their supporters and healthcare professionals about polycystic ovary syndrome. I'll tell you a little bit about what PCOS is.
Okay.
PCOS, or polycystic ovary syndrome, is the most common hormone disorder in women. It's also a metabolic, genetic condition that affects women and girls. Numbers range from 10%, 15%, depending on the diagnostic criteria used to diagnose PCOS. However, it affects millions and millions of women in the United States and worldwide, as well as their families.
Right.
So PCOS, women with PCOS generally have one of three of the following: irregular ovulation or irregular menstruation, signs of androgen or male hormone excess, which could be facial hair, body hair, hirsutism is what it's called, the medical term, or acne. Or on ultrasound, you might see the little immature follicles that are called cysts.
Okay.
So if you have two to three of those, you may be diagnosed with PCOS. And our topic today is mainly going to pertain to infertility, but PCOS is the most common cause of infertility in women, the anovulatory infertility in women. So thank you for having me on to shine light about this condition that affects so many. It's very important. It's one of the most common human disorders. So it's very important for us to speak about this today.
What I think is so important is that for some women, they're not even aware of this syndrome until they start to try to create their family. And then they have the moment of, wow, all these things are coming together and I fall under this criteria. And so I think it's so important, even at the statistics that you're talking about, there's such benefit of talking about this with teenage girls, not as education, as a way of getting to know your body and getting aware of how it is during your cycle and what it might be feeling, and then to carry that with you for through the time that you're trying to create your family. I was talking to someone and they said something very special. They said, I knew something started to not feel right for my body because I was so aware of my body.
Mm.
And I thought, wow, you know, how can we empower all women to say, you know what, I know my body. I know this. I know how this feels, and I know how that is. And I know, you know, I just know me, and I knew something was off. And I think it's so important for us girls to talk about that, to talk about intuition, to talk about, you know, getting comfortable and aware of your cycle and getting comfortable and aware of you. And then when you get to that point of, you know, trying to conceive, because we are talking about infertility and male, you know, PCOS and male factor, because that combination can, you know, I want to say the word brutal, can be brutal on a marriage, on a couple, you know, on your mind, body, and soul. So that's why I think it's so important to be educated about PCOS and what you can do to empower yourself with this, and what you need to do if this is your situation, that there is also male factor.
Absolutely, and you brought up a really good point. The literature usually describes PCOS as a condition in reproductive years, but in fact, PCOS affects a woman throughout her entire life cycle, her entire lifespan. And what we're doing at PCOS is trying to empower young girls, teenagers, to recognize what's normal, what's not so normal, and how to advocate for themselves. Because like you just mentioned, we understand our bodies. We become really aware.
Right.
And a lot of times women are told that it's all in your head. It's, you know, nothing's wrong with you. But we have this innate ability to understand when there's something not quite right and there's something off. So it's really up to us to take control, right, and become advocates for our own healthcare.
Right. Well, you know, the analogy I used was, I didn't know I needed glasses until I was 16 and went for my driver's test and failed it. And people said to me, how could you not know you weren't seeing right? And I was like, well, I was seeing like this all my life. I didn't know that until they said, hey, you know what, you failed. And I'm not using the analogy, I'm not trying to be flippant, but it's almost as if that's your normal, right?
That's right. Right. So when you're told having irregular periods is, you know, that's normal. That's true for some young teenagers, but it should normalize at a certain point. And when that doesn't happen, that should send signals that something isn't wrong. And that should also send signals to your physicians.
Right.
So if your physician or healthcare providers are dismissing you and dismissing your concerns, it might be time to find other options for healthcare, those to help you with your healthcare.
And that, and you know, puberty is so challenging for girls, and that if you're going through puberty and you're having the hormonal fluctuations and you're having, you know, that little bit of body changes and you gain weight and you're eating healthy and you're exercising and you're you know, aware, and you're still having issues with your weight, then that is something that you should also bring up, because that is also, am I correct, you know, a characteristic of PCOS.
Yes, absolutely. And a lot of people with the metabolic dysfunction that's in PCOS will find that they gain weight very quickly and have great difficulty losing weight. This is true even in teenagers who are very active. And aren't addressing the metabolic abnormalities in PCOS. So yeah, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you think you're eating right, you think you're exercising and are active, and you're seeing weight gain, this should be something that's concerning. There are other women with PCOS who don't experience weight gain. You know, this is a population of PCOS that kind of feel left out of the conversation, so to speak, because they don't have weight gain, and they don't have some of the other symptoms. So some symptoms to really pay attention to, and I know it might be embarrassing, especially for women and some young girls, is if you do see body hair or facial hair. A lot of people shave them, or we have very sophisticated ways of hiding these symptoms. But do tell your doctors, do tell your healthcare providers when you notice things like these that are happening that shouldn't be.
Right. And I think it's just, you and I talked about the information coming in and landing, and then maybe further down the line, you'll have the little, oh, I heard that before, and make the connections. But I think the most important thing is really being aware of you and being empowered to talk about, no, I know this isn't right. I know I need to seek action. And so that brings us, maybe we can fast forward. So here you are, maybe now in a partnership or not, and deciding that you want to create a family, you want to have a child, and you receive the diagnosis of PCOS, and then and your partner has male factor. And so what I was so hoping that you and I could talk about is some of the commonalities and the overlap, regardless if you have these conditions or not, when you are trying to create a family. We touched on them before, which can only benefit both the parties. The lifestyle changes, and you touched on them briefly before, but looking into dietary changes such as going gluten-free, and have you had personal experience, or have you about the gluten-free diet and how that relates to the PCOS diagnosis?
Yeah, well, PCOS is so complex, and there's no one diet that works for everyone. This has been proven with research after research. It really is about what works for you. For a lot of women who cut out gluten, cut out dairy, and some of these inflammatory foods, it works wonders. Helps with the irregular periods, helps with some of the infertility. But I'm not a nutritionist. No. I'm a dietitian. But these are some of the changes that a lot of women with PCOS have made. Others, they lean towards more high fat or high protein diets. It really does depend on the individual and how your individual biochemistry reacts with these dietary changes. So, and one very, very important lifestyle change is also exercise, moving your body. Many of us, especially if you're dealing with depression and anxiety, a lot of people don't want to get up out of bed. They don't want to leave their homes. Some people don't want to go to the gym. Body image issues are a real factor here. But moving your body, and to the point where, find something that you love doing.
Right.
But research has shown that resistance training 3 times a week is very beneficial for the insulin resistance, and and helping to reverse some of the hormonal imbalances in PCOS. Another factor is sleep and stress reduction. I know you will go deeply into this a little later on, but this is very important, getting the proper amount of sleep and helping to reduce stress, as we know seems almost impossible when dealing with infertility issues.
Right.
But I think across the board for everyone, whether you have PCOS or not, these are things to pay attention to.
Right. And I've also noticed within some of my clients, but also reading about PCOS and educating myself, is that, the fatigue factor, it feels like sometimes it just comes on, like the flip switches and you're toast, you're done. And I think that's part of what the beginning conversation we had too, is just being aware of, what are your limits and what do you need. One of the great strategies that I talk about my fertility journey and really falling out of love with myself, really being at odds with with myself, with my body, you know, mind, body, and soul kind of anger. And I was doing some studying. Of course, you know, I'm the emotional component, you know, and I was taking this course with this amazing woman, and she had us do this exercise, and it was writing down, and I just did this over the weekend at a workshop, you know, one feeling you would like to feel less of, and one feeling you would like to feel more of, and just jot that down like a order to the universe. And then for 21 days, write, I love and accept myself. And as much as I'm, you know, inundated with the emotional mind, body, you know, relaxation response, stress management, you know, I still had that, this is really, you know, kind of feeling, right? I'm like, oh, here we go again, you know, the 21-day thing. And so I was surprised, you know, without judgment of like, what are we doing? But I wrote that on a little sticky note. I love and accept myself. And each day for 21 days, I did it. And the ripple and the carryover of it was, you know, at first I would say, oh my gosh, look at these wrinkles. And then I was like, I don't see any wrinkles, you know.
I don't see any wrinkles either.
Do you know? So I think there's simple, practical things that you can do when you get that disheartening feeling, you know, about yourself and maybe, you know, about moving forward. And
in the moment, though, for a lot of us, it's very difficult to pause, stop, take a breath, and make a positive change or think positively about, you know, something. We're in the moment thinking in a negative situation or being depressed. It's hard for a lot of people to stop and think positively about something or find something positive to experience in that moment.
No, so, I totally get that. I totally get that. And that's exactly what you should be doing at that moment. Right. You know, you have this, you know, the part of your brain, the amygdala is, you know, is the middle part of your brain, your right and your left. And what ends up happening is that, you know, it goes almost into overdrive because, you know, something that maybe wouldn't have triggered you before you realized your situation of infertility or PCOS, you know, now you go from 0 to 100 as opposed to 0 to 10, and it's hypersensitive, it's hyper, you know, active. Mm-hmm. And so I find for me personally, and I don't know, maybe for you too, you can comment on this, that instead of judging that part of me that, you know, drives that bus right to awful town, I say, oh, that's curious. Here I go again. And like, it's almost like you're watching yourself, like have that moment, the hissy moment. And the word I use in my house and my kids, you know, my son's 18 now, my daughter's 13. I always say, I'm triggered. I'm going off. Look out. And so it was hilarious. My son came home the other day and he goes, you know what, Mom? Triggered seems to be the word now. Everybody uses it. You were using it like what I was for. Okay, I'm triggered. Look out. You know, here we go. But I know, like, we're all human. Yeah. And we forget, like, it's okay. You know, you're doing exactly what you need to be doing. And that moment's going to change. You're going to have that moment. You call out that moment, and it's going to be all right. Because I feel like you get into that judgment of yourself for feeling that way and feeling wrong for feeling that way, you know, then you're in that cycle that keeps you spinning.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know that we have the power to change that, right? Even if when we don't feel it, that's when we really need to kind of turn things around, change our existence right there in the moment. Take a deep breath. And, you know, you said it, yes, we're triggered. The spiral, the snowball is starting, right? Yeah. But taking a step back and appreciating what we have, or, you know, the positive things, I think is powerful. It's empowering as well.
Well, for me, I think it's so important for women and for men to, like, give them permission to feel what they're feeling.
Yeah.
and say, that's all right, because you know what, it is a challenge. It's upsetting and disheartening and all those negative emotions. But if you have a practice of allowing, way back when, infertility and PCOS and all, the amazing support that's out there, it was very different. It was resolve, and we were kind of in the closet about your fertility and what was going on. And I think the fuel that helped me get through was really finding that little glimmer of hope or glimmer of gratitude. And,
I come from a different point. I haven't dealt with infertility issues, but I have great empathy for people who do. I work with a lot of women and their partners. Each year, I know you mentioned earlier, at the PCOS Awareness Symposium, we have a session called Couples Therapy, and it's very well received. We have couples who come together in this place where it's this safe place to talk about. Even the men get an opportunity to speak about things that they don't usually talk about. Even women who are dealing with infertility, a lot of people still find this as a place of shame, or or they feel like their bodies are just are disappointing them, and they're disappointing their spouses. So this is I think a forum like that, where spouses come together and speak about, bounce ideas off each other and bounce issues off each other. I think a forum like this is very beneficial, so that men who are dealing with this and women who are dealing with this can see that they're not alone, because it's a very isolating
right.
Yeah.
Yes. And you feel like there's nobody else out there that can understand what you're facing. And I think, you and I talked a little bit before we became live about how it's so important to have a game plan, a fertility game plan.
Yeah.
And part of that should really be keeping a log of the cycle, and keeping a log of, even it's not a log, but one of the suggestions I offer up is really getting one of those old notebooks that we have. I don't have one on my desk. I give them away. But I love them. I get them at Walmart. The composition notebooks that we used to have at school, and just journal back and forth to each other. And if you don't feel, if the partner doesn't feel like writing, then that's okay. But just creating a safe place for non-direct communication. Because what I found, even for my male clients that I have a privilege of talking to, it's so much better for them sometimes just to jot something down in their funny kind of way and leave it. Have that one space where that notebook lives, and have that be the vault that you can share and talk about it. And most of the time, the women just jot away, and sometimes there's just a couple lines back and forth, but that's the safe communication, non-direct communication about this. So the strategies would be like what we talked about, creating a fertility game plan that houses both partners. What do I feel? What do I need? And then, having a communication journal back and forth. And then, you talked about lifestyle changes, dietary and exercise. And of course, regardless of what is going on with your body, if you're trying to create a family, minimal, alcohol intake and smoking. And then really acknowledgement of your own feelings, having that safe place that you can talk about it. That's why that is such a great idea to have that within the symposium.
Yeah, absolutely. And it takes two, right, to make a baby. And statistics show that 1/3 of infertility cases are attributed to women, the other third to men, and another third to both in unexplained cases. So, we do need to act as a partnership. I've come across many women who blame themselves, especially women with PCOS, because you automatically assume that, oh, it's her fault, right? And there's some men who haven't been as kind to their wives who are dealing with PCOS, without even figuring out whether they have, male factor as well, right? So it does take two, and it takes a support system. And the first support system should be, the spouses, the partners, supporting each other.
Right.
Right. So I do love that idea of journaling. I know most husbands will probably jot one line down, or just, maybe write, okay, I love you.
Right. But that's, I think probably that would be amazing. I actually do this with, with my kids too. And it surprises me, sometimes it just comes out of nowhere and there it is. And I'm like, well, that's really cool, because in the most important part about that too is with the neuroscience, that if you're in that place of triggered, that if you take pen to paper, you're bridging that gap again, and that the logical part and the emotional part gets together, and then it comes down. And so maybe it's just gibberish, or maybe it's just, a rant, but that is just so important also for the whole system. Right. And that's why I'm not saying text your partner, although you can do that. It's just, even for men, to take that moment to write down, works magic with both sides of the hemispheres of the brain. Yeah, and it's effort, right? And that shows your partner something. You're putting forth the effort. Right. Right. Well, I'm so grateful for your time, and I'm so grateful that we met, and that, I have you as a resource to refer people to, because, that sense of isolation, once that is overcome, and that you feel like you're back and have a community and have your posse, I call it a posse, who's in your posse? That's what I always say to my clients. Who do you got? Who's the girl that will come in and get you? That one that will say, oh no, get back up. And I feel like that's, what people get from your organization. Oh no, honey, nobody left behind. You're getting back up. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for having the guts, right? You're a brave woman, I think, to set an example of people who've been there. This was your story. This is a part of your journey as well, and you kind of turned this around to help other people who are dealing with it. And so kudos to you. Thank you for all that you do in helping couples and women who are dealing with infertility.
Thank you. So where should people find you? I know I'll put that under the video, but if someone was watching you and said, I need to talk to her right now.
Well, our website is PCOS Challenge, PCOSchallenge.org. And the online network is PCOSchallenge.com for women and girls who are dealing with PCOS, as well as their spouses, partners, and other supporters. And we're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at PCOS Challenge. So we'd love to hear from you. We'd love for you to be a part of the support network, the support system for others. And, let's let our voices be heard, that PCOS is a serious issue and should be a public health priority.
Thank you so much. Okay, we'll be promoting everything, and I hope we can do this again real soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kristen.
Bye, everybody.